Assalamu alaikum. We will start the last session for our conference today. Our speaker will be Dr. Khalid Hussein. He is consultant endocrinologist. He will talk about diabetes research at Sidra Medicine.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Can you all hear me at the back? Is this working? Fantastic. So I've been tasked to tell you a little bit about what we do in a brand new state-of-the-art children's hospital in Sidra, Qatar. Some of you will know that in the last 3 years, new hospitals opened up in Sidra. And the aim is to develop this into a state-of-the-art hospital for the care of children, if possible, throughout the whole of the Middle East and not just in Qatar. So, I have nothing to disclose. So firstly, I want to thank Abid. Where is Abid? Abid, thank you very much for inviting me once again. It's wonderful to be here. Hospitality is absolutely amazing. Thank you. So the aims of this talk, what I want to do, as there are quite a lot of adult endocrinologists here, I'm going to give you an overview of childhood diabetes. I'm going to tell you all about the different types of childhood diabetes that we see. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's known about childhood diabetes in Qatar. Then I'm going to summarize what we've been doing in the last 1.5 years in terms of where the research started and in terms of showing you some of the results. The key thing I'm going to show you how some of these results have impacted the care of some of these patients and how our results are transforming the care of childhood diabetes in Qatar. And then just to show you the final direction, I want to show you where we're going to go in the next few years in terms of our research in this area. Now I'm going to make this an interactive session, so I'm going to ask you some questions. So please try and engage. So the key message from this slide is that in children we see many different forms of diabetes. In adults you probably see type 2, which is the most common. You may see type 1. But I'm going to show you that in childhood we see many different forms of diabetes. Anybody tell me how many types of diabetes there are in children? Anybody? Have a guess. Okay, I'm going to put you out of your misery. So type 1 is the most common type of diabetes that we see in children. Type 2 used to be rare in children, but I'm going to show you some data from Qatar. We have a very large number of children with type 2, and I'm sure the same will apply in some of the other Middle East countries, and in Palestine. I'm going to show you a rare form of diabetes that occurs from birth to 6 months of age, called neonatal diabetes. I'm going to show you a type of diabetes that occurs in families, so multiple family members have diabetes, called MODI. We're getting onto some rare types, that mitochondrial diabetes newly inherited from the mother. There are in childhood a very large number of syndromes that lead to diabetes. There are a new group of diseases called polygenic autoimmune diabetes, again rare, but multiple polygenic forms of diabetes. And for me who does research in this area, the key thing is there are a large number of families who we don't know what the cause of diabetes is. And that's fascinating because we want to try and discover new causes of diabetes. So let me start off by giving you a brief background to type 1 diabetes. This may be familiar to most of you, but there may be some other adults here who are not familiar with this, or some other students may not be familiar. So most of you know type 1 is a complex autoimmune disorder. It is characterized by the destruction of pancreatic beta cells, and it's an interplay of immune, genetics, and environmental factors. Now until recently, these were thought to be the key factors in the etiology of type 1 diabetes. But now epigenetics, diet, microRNAs, and this, we can't keep this out of any etiology of any disease. Microbiomes are thought to be implicated in every disease, and also in type 1 diabetes. This is just showing you the natural history of what happens. So this is time, progression, and this is beta cell mass. You can see gradually the beta cells get destroyed and symptoms start around here. And I'm going to take you through some of these more stages of type 1 diabetes in a minute. So the key markers that are present in the blood before the children develop diabetes are these antibodies. And these are 4 of the most common antibodies that we screen for. This is very rare. This has only recently been described. And I've seen no publications where this has been measured in different populations. But GAD, insulin, islet, and zinc transporter are the most common antibodies that we measure. So remember, these are present in the blood usually before the children develop diabetes. So they're like biochemical markers. Type 2 diabetes usually associated with insulin resistance, and the most common cause is obesity. The same occurs, I think, in adults as occurs in children. Neonatal diabetes. So this is, like I said, diabetes that starts from birth or to 6 months of age, so within the first 6 months. Now just keep this figure in mind. In the Western population, it's supposed to be very rare. And I'm going to show you some figures from this part of the world and the incidence. So these children are usually born with small IUGR because insulin is a growth factor. If there's no insulin, they don't grow. And then they present typically with dehydration, hypoglycemia, ketoacidosis, failure to thrive, or poor feeding. And I apologize for putting up this complex table, but I'm just showing you the genetic mechanisms that underlie the etiology of neonatal diabetes. The ones in red here are associated with an abnormal development of the pancreas. So babies are born either with no pancreas or a very small pancreas, so pancreatic agenesis or pancreatic hypoplasia. And these are the rare monogenic causes of neonatal diabetes mellitus. In the Western population, the most common cause of neonatal diabetes is this. So these are channel proteins on the beta cell that control insulin secretion. But we don't see this in this part of the world. We see a different type of neonatal diabetes. So I just highlighted the most common cause in Western populations, and the most common cause in the Arabic population is this syndrome, Walcott-Radisson syndrome. Then, brief word on maturity onset diabetes of the young. So this is a monogenic disorder of diabetes, really dominant in etiology, diagnosed usually before the age of 25. And until recently, there were about 11 genes, but now it's gone to 13 different genes are implicated in the cause of MODY. And these lead to defects in the way the beta cell releases insulin. Like I said, it's usually monogenic. Obesity may, but it's really associated with MODY. And MODY accounts for about 5% of all the diabetic cases that you might see. The key thing is you need to identify which patients may have MODY, because you can actually change their management. Some patients with MODY do not need insulin injections. You can actually put them into oral sulfonylureas. And this is the beauty of making a molecular diagnosis in some of these patients. So if you take a family pedigree, if you take a family history, when you see a patient with MODY, this is typically what you'll see. So multiple family members affected with diabetes. So if you see a patient with diabetes, just make sure you go through the family history in detail. And again, I apologize for putting up this complex slide, but these are the genetic basis of MODY. These are some of the genes implicated in MODY. And again, it's very important to make a molecular diagnosis because in some of these, you don't need to give insulin. In one of these, you don't need to give anything at all because the blood sugars are only slightly raised. In others, you can change them to oral medication. And I'll show you examples of some of our patients in Zipper. And this is another complex slide, but I'm just showing you the most important thing is in childhood, a large number of syndromes are associated with diabetes mellitus. You don't need to know the names of those syndromes, but things like Bardet-Biedl and Alstrom are the common things that you might see. A few rare things on there as well. Okay, so what do we know about the etiology or what sort of research has taken place in the Middle East in terms of diabetes? And this is, we actually did a very detailed systematic review looking at what's been published already in childhood diabetes in the MENA region. And this will recently be published soon in Frontiers in Endocrinology. And what we came across was something very interesting. We noticed that in the MENA region, most of the research has been done on case reports and retrospective reviews. There's been no real clinical trials, no molecular mechanisms of disease. And so this is the sort of thing we wanted to sort of start understanding what's going on here. So, does anybody know the population of Qatar? You're not supposed to say anything. What's the population of Qatar? Anybody? It's a small country. It's about 2.7 million. How many Qataris? About 300,000. So you can imagine everybody else is expat. So it's a small country. But the beauty is, in that country, there's now only one hospital where all the children with diabetes come. So we have a tertiary referral center where every child with diabetes will only come to one hospital. So no other hospital is allowed to treat those children except one hospital. So most of you know the geography. I don't need to go through the geography. So what we did, we embarked on a project to try and understand the molecular mechanism and the epidemiology and the biochemical basis of every child with diabetes mellitus that comes to Sidra Medicine, which is a referral center. But this wasn't easy because although I started 3 years ago, when I started there was no research infrastructure, it was a brand new hospital, and nothing was set up. So we had to start right from the beginning. So first we had to get funding from somewhere because they didn't let me bring my team from London. I was not allowed to take my research team to Sidra. So I had to start right from the beginning. So the first thing I did, I got some money from the Qatar National Research Fund. They gave me $1 million US. And I got some money from Sidra Medicine itself. They gave me 1 million Qatari riyals to start the research. So these were highly competitive grant funding bodies that fund research. So luckily we got some funding. The next thing, we built a team. So these are the clinicians that all look after patients with diabetes and other endocrine conditions. And this is my research team here at the moment. And Dr. Basma is in red because she's got the tough task of trying to recruit patients. Recruiting patients in Qatar is not easy, I'm sure it's also difficult in this country. Patients don't understand the concept of research. They think you're going to do something to their DNA, which is completely wrong. So we're trying to, a culture change is happening in Qatar, a complete way of thinking of what we mean by research. So the next thing was to establish the research infrastructure. I'll just show you what we actually did. So the IRB committee was just established. We had a facility set up for seeing the families. A phlebotomy service was set up. A tracking system for taking blood samples. There's a system called CERNA, which is the electronic medical records. So we could see families for all the records in the CERNA and actually request all the blood tests. The core facility for DNA processing was established, and all the biochemistry laboratories were established. So this took about a year and a half to set up. So the research, I'm going to show you the results. It's only been going on for the last 1 year and about 4 months. So this is a complex slide, but the key message is what we wanted to do is to identify every child in the state of Qatar that has all different types of diabetes and undertake molecular characterization so we can practice personalized medicine. So we can actually give them the treatment they need. So let me show you what we did. Anybody hazard a guess how many children in Qatar have diabetes? Anybody have a guess? Come on. More. 10,000. 10,000? So far, we have identified so far about 1,033 children, but this is not the right figure. There are more children. We've not captured every child yet. We are still in the process. So I think we'll end up about 1,200, 1,300 children with diabetes. So every child with diabetes will be on this classification. So what we've done now is every child that comes to Sidra, we're asking ourselves the question, what is the cause of this child's diabetes? And this is what we've done. So far, we started to stratify these children into the different causes. So I'm just going to put this slide up so I'll show you what we're doing. So we've identified all the patients with neonatal diabetes. We've identified virtually all the patients with type 1 diabetes. Interestingly, we've got patients with antibody-negative type 1 diabetes. We've got patients with type 2 diabetes. We've got patients with double diabetes. I didn't know what double diabetes was until I went to Qatar, so they told me what double diabetes was. I'll explain that in a minute. Modi patients, syndromic patients. I showed you the newly diagnosed autoimmune polygenic, and patients that are waiting for the results to be updated. So let me just show you the results so far. So we have 9 patients. Remember, neonatal diabetes is rare. We have 9 patients with all different forms of neonatal diabetes. And I'll show you the results of that in a minute. So far, we have characterized 639 patients with type 1 antibody positive. Now, again, I'll show you the results. We've got 22 patients with complete antibody negative, all 4 antibody negatives that we're calling type 1, but I'm not sure. We're going to reinvestigate those in more detail. Remember I said type 2 was rare? So far we've got 39, but that number will probably go up to 45, even 50 by the time we finish. 5 patients with double diabetes, 12 patients with Modi, 9 patients with different syndromes, 2 with these rare forms of autoimmune polygenic, and nearly 237 patients waiting to be classified. So in these we don't know, we haven't been able to take the blood sample yet to be able to confirm which category they fall into. So hopefully by the end of this year, hopefully all of these patients will be stratified into some of these. There will be a box here where we don't know the etiology of diabetes. There will be some cases where we don't know what the actual cause is. So what I want to do is just show some examples of some of these results that we have. So looking at the neonatal diabetes first of all, we've got 9 patients with permanent neonatal diabetes. Neonatal diabetes can be transient or permanent. We've got no transient forms. We've only had 9 patients with permanent neonatal diabetes. And again, this is a complex table. I apologize, you probably can't see it that well. But just to show you the clinical features and the molecular biology of all of these 9 patients. They were born small. are most of the clinical features, but the key take-home message is from the first 3 patients, they have a defect in one of the transcription factors that causes developmental formation of the pancreas. So these babies are born with no pancreas. So they're born with agenesis of the pancreas. So they present right from birth with neonatal diabetes. And then we've got a few others. We've got glucokinase mutation, the Walker-Ballison that I showed you, insulin gene mutation, and HLF1 beta mutation. So these are already known genes that cause neonatal diabetes. So there's nothing new on this table. This has already been described in terms of mechanisms. So most of our patients had a syndromic form of neonatal diabetes. And this table just shows you, this pie chart just showed you the different forms of syndromes. So Walker-Ballison, Fanconi-Bickel, and this was the pancreatic agenesis, PTH1A. And this looks at the incidence of permanent neonatal diabetes in Qatar compared to some of the other countries around this region. And Saudi Arabia has the highest incidence, and Walker-Ballison syndrome was the most commonest cause of neonatal diabetes in Saudi Arabia. We in Qatar have the second highest, and this is our incidence. It's extremely high compared to the figure that I showed you right at the beginning. And the most common form of neonatal diabetes is the pancreatic agenesis that I showed you due to the PTH1A mutation. And then we just looked at, and this table just showing you the indigenous Qatari population against the non-Qatari, and even when you compare them, the incidence of neonatal diabetes is high in the indigenous Qatari population. So the key message is we're seeing very different types of neonatal diabetes in Qatar compared to some of the other countries. And I'm very glad to say that all the work that I showed you was done in Qatar. Not a single sample left the country. All the molecular biology, all the bioinformatics, everything was done in Qatar. And this makes me very proud because we started only 1.5 years ago, a brand new hospital opened in the middle of nowhere, and yet we were able to transform, take blood samples, and do everything in the state of Qatar. So extremely nice. Just going quickly through, because I've only got 20 minutes, I'm just going to quickly go through the results of type 1 diabetes. So with the type 1s, we're doing antibody status. We're measuring all 4 antibodies that I showed you. We're going to do HLA haplotype status because remember, this predisposes you to type 1 diabetes. And then we're stratifying our patients into the large number of families that run with diabetes. We've got family members, brothers, sisters, mum and dad affected with type 1 diabetes. And this is just showing you just preliminary results on the antibodies. Just showing you I think there's 639 there. These are the negative ones. And then we're stratifying these into whether they have other autoimmune markers, for example, paraglobulin, TPO, or celiac disease as well. So this is just preliminary data. We're analyzing this data in more detail and getting ready to publish this data. And this is just playing around with all the different antibodies, comparing them. All four patients, for example, had all 4 patients, 50 patients, sorry, had all 4 antibodies positive. And you got different combinations of antibodies. So like I said, this is very preliminary data. We're just playing around with the data as we speak. And again, just showing you different antibodies present in our patients. And then the familial forms, like I said, we've got a large number of families with multiple affected siblings. Like for example, there's 23 families with 2 affected siblings, 15 families with 3 affected siblings, and then mother and dad affected in different families. So we're going to be looking in more detail at the etiology of diabetes in these groups. Just quickly summarizing the type 2 diabetes. Now what is interesting, I'm glad that we've got experts in insulin resistance here. Most of the patients were insulin resistant. We've got a few that are lean, and we're classifying them as type 2 diabetes. Now there's a lot more work to be done on these few patients. And interestingly, on some of these patients, we actually found that they are weakly antibody positive. So despite having type 2, they've got antibody positive. And these are what they call the double diabetes. So these are patients with obesity and insulin resistance, but they're antibody positive. And like I said, to me, this was a new word until I went to Qatar. And you can see antibody positivity in some of these patients. So a very interesting group of patients. The MODI results so far. So we've got 12 patients with MODI. We've got 1 family with glucokinase mutation, 1 family with HNF1 alpha, and 7 under investigation at the moment. The syndromes, we've got Wolfram syndrome, 1 patient. There's a very unusual syndrome that only occurs in Saudi Arabia and Qatar called Woodhouse-Sakati syndrome, where they get diabetes later in life. Fanconi-Bickel, we've got 3. We've got 1 patient with skeletal dysplasia and diabetes where we don't know the mechanism. And oops, what's happening here? We got 3 patients with Down syndrome and antibody positive. The monogenic, like I said, we've got 2 forms, very rare forms. We don't need to go into those at the moment. Now, I just want to show you the translational implication of what I've been doing. Some of you will say to me, this is fantastic, but what does it mean to the patients? So this is a Qatari boy that comes to my clinic. He's 15 years of age. He's like typical adolescent. He hates giving insulin injections. He came to me, we worked him up. He's antibody negative with a family history of diabetes. So genetic testing showed HNF1 alpha, which is called a MODI. I've now stopped his insulin injections. He's on oral sulfonylurea, and he's a very happy boy. So extremely a nice outcome for this boy. This is a family with glucokinase mutation. These are 4 siblings that were on insulin, but they were antibody negative. And we checked that they had glucokinase mutation, and we were able to stop all medication in this family completely. So no medication required. This is another glucokinase with hyperglycemia, with no treatment, but the child doesn't need treatment at all. So another nice example of MODI mutation. This is just showing you the ethnicity of the samples we collected. Again, this is not up to date. This will be completed later on. But what I want to illustrate to you is the number of Qatari children with type 1 diabetes. You can see here that they outstrip virtually all the other ethnicities that we have living in Qatar. And from what I know, the most common population in Qatar is the Indian population. And yet the Indian number of children is just a few here. So something nice coming up in terms of ethnicity. So just 2 minutes. So just want to summarize in terms of future directions where we want to go. So hopefully by the end of the year, what I showed you, the last column will be sorted out. So every child in Qatar, we will know the etiology of their diabetes. And for me as a clinician that looks after these patients, we want to practice personalized medicine. And we heard some lovely examples yesterday in adult medicine where there are new drugs coming along, GLP-1 agonists and SGLT2 inhibitors, etc. So coming along, so it'd be very nice to be able to put that into practice in children. We want to be ready to implement new therapies on all our patients with diabetes. And this is my vision for the future. We want a national center of excellence for diabetes. We want to be the regional center for genetic testing for all forms of diabetes that I showed you earlier on. This is our state-of-the-art children's hospital. You're all very welcome to come. As you know, the World Cup in 2022, you must all be there. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you all. And thank you very much for listening.